You walk into Costco, Walmart, or Best Buy looking for a new smart display, and the last thing on your mind is surveillance. You are thinking about screen size, picture quality, maybe whether it fits above the fireplace. Privacy is not exactly what the sales floor is designed to make you think about. But here is what the display manufacturers are counting on. Every smart display you bring into your home is also a data collection device. Some are aggressive about it. Some are borderline predatory about it. And a small number actually respect the fact that your living room is your private space. The moment you connect a smart display to your Wi-Fi, it starts learning what you watch when you watch it, how long you stay on a channel before switching, whether you are home or not, what apps you open and in what order. That information is packaged, analyzed, and in many cases sold to third-party advertisers. And most buyers have no idea it is happening because the consent is buried in a terms of service document nobody reads during setup. Some brands have paid federal fines for collecting data without proper disclosure. Others quietly harvest your viewing behavior through a technology called automatic content recognition, which scans your screen in real time, including content from external devices like cable boxes and game consoles, and sell that data to data brokers. And the cheaper the display gets, the worse this tends to be, because your data is part of how these companies make the economics of a $200 television actually work. Today we are ranking 10 major smart display brands on privacy. From the worst offenders to the ones that actually treat your data with some level of respect. Let's get into it. Number 10. ON/Ultra Budget Roku Displays. You will see these stacked on pallets the second you walk into Walmart. And for a lot of budget shoppers, especially families trying to put a screen in a bedroom or a kid's room without spending a fortune, the price makes it feel like the obvious choice. That instinct is understandable. But from a privacy standpoint, ONN displays running Roku software are among the most data-hungry options you will find anywhere on a retail shelf. Roku's entire business model is built around advertising revenue and data monetization. The hardware is cheap because the data you generate using it has real value to Roku's advertising partners. Every channel you open, every show you watch, every time you pause or rewind, Roku's automatic content recognition technology is logging it. That data gets used to build an advertising profile tied to your household, and that profile gets shared with third parties. ONN displays are essentially the lowest cost entry point into Roku's data collection ecosystem. The home screen is loaded with sponsored content and targeted recommendations that are not there to help you find something to watch. They are there because advertisers paid to reach you specifically based on your viewing history. And Roku's privacy controls, while they do exist, are not exactly front and center during setup. You have to go looking for them. Beyond the privacy concerns, the weak processors in these units mean performance degrades over time, Wi-Fi instability is a recurring complaint, and dead pixels and backlight issues show up at higher rates than most competing brands. But in a privacy conversation, the data harvesting is the headline problem. It looks cheap in the cart because your attention and your data are part of the business model. And somehow, the next brand proves you can spend slightly more and still end up in the same trap. Number 9. Insignia/Fire TV displays. Best Buy pushes these hard during holiday sales, and Amazon pushes them everywhere else. Because Insignia Fire TV displays are, at their core, a data collection product with a screen attached. That is not an exaggeration. It is the business model stated plainly. Amazon's Fire TV platform is one of the most comprehensive consumer surveillance systems ever built into a living room device. From the moment you complete setup, Amazon is tracking your viewing habits through automatic content recognition, building a profile of your household's interests, and using that data to serve you targeted ads, both on the Fire TV home screen and across Amazon's broader advertising network. Your viewing behavior on a Fire TV display can influence what ads you see when you shop, On Amazon, what recommendations appear in your Amazon app, and what sponsored content shows up across Amazon's publisher network. The home screen is structured to maximize Amazon's revenue, not your convenience. Autoplay previews for Prime Video content start without your prompting. Rows of sponsored recommendations appear before your own installed apps, and the settings to limit data collection are real but scattered. You need to disable automatic content recognition manually, opt out of interest-based ads separately, and dig through multiple menus to get anywhere close to a private setup. On top of the privacy concerns, the Fire TV interface grows more sluggish over time as background processes pile up, and motion handling on budget insignia panels struggles with sports and fast-moving content. But if your primary concern is who knows what you watch in your own home, Fire TV is a platform you need to approach with real caution. Now we move into a category that is even more dangerous. Brands that look privacy-conscious on the surface, but hide significant data practices underneath. Number 8. Hisense entry-level smart displays. Hisense does not get discussed as aggressively in privacy conversations as Roku or Amazon, and that relative quiet has let a real problem go mostly unexamined for budget shoppers who assume less famous means less invasive. Hisense uses automatic content recognition across its lineup. Like most smart display manufacturers, it collects data on what you watch and when. And that data gets shared with advertising partners as part of the standard smart TV business model. The difference is that Hisense does not always make the opt-out process obvious, and the firmware update history gives privacy-focused buyers additional reason for concern. Firmware updates on Hisense displays have a documented pattern of introducing changes that go beyond bug fixes, altering interface behavior, changing what is accessible in settings, and in some cases re-enabling data collection features that users had previously turned off. That last part is particularly significant from a privacy standpoint. If an update can quietly reset your privacy preferences without a clear notification, the settings you adjusted during setup may not be doing what you think they are doing 6 months later. Hisense also operates in a regulatory environment that adds a layer of concern for buyers who are sensitive to data sovereignty questions. As a Chinese-owned manufacturer, it operates under data laws and government access frameworks that differ from what American or European consumers may be accustomed to. That does not mean Hisense is doing anything specifically nefarious, but it is a factor that informed buyers factor in. The panels can look genuinely impressive at these prices, but from a privacy standpoint, the combination of ACR data collection, unpredictable firmware behavior, and limited transparency makes this a harder recommendation than the spec sheet suggests. Impressive display specs on the surface, a more complicated picture underneath, and now we get to the brand that completely changed the budget display market, for better and worse. Number 7. TCL Smart Displays. TCL is everywhere. Target, Best Buy, Costco, online. And for budget shoppers, it has become the go-to recommendation for getting a large screen without breaking the budget. The picture per dollar argument is real, but from a privacy standpoint, TCL has a history that deserves more attention than it typically gets in mainstream buying guides. In 2019, the FBI issued a public warning specifically about TCL televisions, citing concerns about the company's data practices and the potential for security vulnerabilities that could allow unauthorized access to devices on your home network. TCL disputed the characterization, and no confirmed large-scale breach was ever publicly documented. But the warning came from the FBI, not a tech blogger, and it was specific enough to take seriously. TCL's displays ship with Roku or Google TV software depending on the model, and both of those platforms carry their own data collection practices layered on top of TCL's own. That means buyers are potentially dealing with two separate data pipelines, the platform layer and the manufacturer layer, each with its own privacy policy and opt-out process. Navigating both of them completely takes real effort. The retailer exclusive variant problem also has a privacy dimension. When a store sells a model that is not widely reviewed online, there is less public documentation of its firmware behavior, its data collection defaults, and whether privacy settings actually function as described. You are buying something with less public accountability attached to it, genuinely strong value for the budget. But go in knowing the full picture and take the time to configure privacy settings on both the manufacturer and platform levels. Here is what the retail environment is specifically designed to prevent you from thinking about. When you are standing in front of a wall of displays under store lighting, comparing screen sizes and checking price tags, data privacy is invisible. The display does not advertise what it collects. The box does not say how many third parties will receive your viewing history. The salesperson is not going to bring it up. And the setup process is designed to move you through data consent screens as quickly and invisibly as possible, with pre-checked boxes and vague language that technically gets your agreement without genuinely informing you. The brands at the bottom of this list have business models that depend on that invisibility. The brands at the top have made different choices. If this already saved you from a bad smart display deal, hit subscribe, because the next 5 brands might shock you. Number 6. Vizio. Vizio's privacy history is not a rumor or a concern buried in a technical white paper. It is federal record. In 2017, Vizio paid $2.2 million to settle charges brought by the Federal Trade Commission and the New Jersey Attorney General. The core finding was that Vizio had been collecting detailed viewing data from its displays, tracking what customers watched second by second across cable, satellite, streaming, and over-the-air content, and selling that data to third parties without clearly disclosing it to consumers or obtaining meaningful consent. That is not a company that made a policy mistake and quietly corrected it. That is a company that was caught running an undisclosed data business built on top of their customers' private viewing habits and paid a government fine to resolve it. Vizio updated its disclosure practices after the settlement. Automatic content recognition is now disclosed during setup, and there is an opt-out option. But the underlying business, Inscape, Vizio's data services division, still exists and still operates. Opting out of ACR on a Vizio display requires finding the right menu during or after setup, and the default is Collection On. If you do not actively turn it off, it runs. SmartCast, Vizio's smart TV platform, also carries a weaker reputation for stability than Roku or Google TV, which adds a software layer of frustration on top of the privacy concerns. App reliability is inconsistent, and firmware updates have introduced problems across multiple model generations. The panel hardware is genuinely capable for the price, but the FTC settlement is real, the data business is still operating, and the default settings still favor collection. That combination is difficult to overlook. Number 5. Samsung entry-level QLED and Crystal UHD. Samsung is the biggest television manufacturer in the world, and its data practices reflect the scale of that operation. The Samsung brand carries enormous consumer trust, and that trust has made it easier for some of the company's data collection practices to go unexamined by the average buyer who assumes that a premium name means premium privacy standards. Samsung's smart displays use a platform called Tizen, which includes automatic content recognition through a service called Samba TV on some models, and Samsung's own ACR system on others. Like most ACR implementations, it monitors what is on your screen, including content from external devices connected via HDMI, and uses that data to build an advertising profile. Samsung has been transparent about this in its privacy policy, but the policy is long. The relevant sections are not highlighted during setup, and the default is data collection enabled. Tizen has also shifted noticeably in recent years toward more advertising integrations on the home screen. Sponsored content rows, branded content sections, and targeted recommendations have become more prominent across Samsung's interface updates, a reflection of how much advertising revenue now factors into Samsung's television business model beyond hardware sales. The entry-level Samsung lineup also has a technical concern that connects to privacy differently than most. The model number confusion that makes comparison shopping difficult also makes it harder for buyers to verify which privacy features and settings are available on the specific unit they are purchasing. If you cannot clearly identify your model, you cannot clearly verify its data practices. Strong brand recognition carrying a privacy picture that deserves more scrutiny than the logo typically invites. Number 4. LG nanocell and lower QNED models. LG sits in an interesting position in the privacy conversation because the company's overall approach to data is more transparent than several brands ranked below it. But the lower end of their lineup still carries the standard smart TV data collection practices that privacy-conscious buyers need to understand before purchasing. LG's smart displays use WebOS, and LG has been more forthcoming than most manufacturers about what data it collects and how. The setup process on WebOS displays includes clearer disclosures about data collection than what you typically encounter on Roku or Fire TV, and the privacy settings are more logically organized and easier to find after the fact. That relative transparency matters. It does not eliminate data collection, but it gives buyers a better chance of actually understanding what they are agreeing to. LG does operate an ACR system, and like most implementations, it is enabled by default. Opting out is possible, and the process is more straightforward than on many competing platforms. LG also participates in interest-based advertising through its smart TV platform, and WebOS in recent years has introduced more sponsored content on the home screen, a trend that tracks across almost every major platform. The lower QNED and nanocell models also tend to be overpriced relative to what TCL and Hisense deliver at similar price points. And from a privacy standpoint, you are not getting meaningfully better data protections than those brands for the premium you are paying. The LG name buys you better hardware quality control and a cleaner software experience, but not dramatically better privacy outcomes at this tier. Better transparency than most brands at this price. Not a clean privacy record, but a more honest one. Number 3. Google TV ecosystem displays. Google TV is one of the most capable smart display platforms available right now. The app ecosystem is comprehensive, the interface is well organized, voice integration is genuinely useful, and long-term software support is more reliable than most competing platforms. From a pure usability standpoint, it earns its place near the top of any ranking. But Google's relationship with user data is the most important thing to understand before choosing a display running Google TV. Because Google is, at its core, an advertising and data company. That is not a criticism. It is a description of the business model that funds everything Google builds. Google TV collects viewing data, app usage patterns, search history within the platform, and behavioral signals that feed into Google's broader advertising ecosystem. Your activity on a Google TV display connects to your Google account, which means it can interact with data Google already holds about your search behavior, your location history, your Gmail usage, and your activity across other Google products. The integration is deep and by design. Google is transparent about this in its privacy documentation. But the scope of what that integration means in practice is something most buyers do not fully consider when they are choosing a smart display. If you have already bought into the Google ecosystem, Android phone, Google account, Gmail, Google Maps, then Google TV is not meaningfully expanding your data footprint in a new direction. It is extending the same relationship into your living room. For those buyers, The platform's advantages are real, and the privacy trade-off is already a familiar one. If you are privacy sensitive and trying to minimize your Google data footprint, this is a platform to approach carefully. One of the best software experiences available, with the most important privacy trade-off on this list clearly understood going in. Number 2. Sony Smart Displays. Sony occupies a genuinely different position in the privacy landscape compared to most brands on this list, and it starts with the fact that Sony is primarily a hardware and entertainment company, not an advertising company. That distinction matters more than most buyers realize. Sony runs Google TV on its displays, which means the platform-level data practices are the same as what we just discussed at number 3. Google's data relationship exists on Sony hardware, just as it does on any other Google TV device. That is a real consideration, and it does not disappear because the display says Sony on the front. But here is what makes Sony different at the manufacturer level. Sony does not run its own parallel data collection business layered on top of the platform. It does not operate an ACR system selling your viewing data to third-party advertisers through a proprietary data brokerage. It does not have a history of federal privacy enforcement actions. It does not have an advertising division that benefits from profiling what you watch in your living room. Sony's business interests are in selling you hardware and, through its entertainment division, content. That alignment is fundamentally different from brands whose post-sale revenue depends on mining your behavior. Sony's quality control is tighter than most competitors, which matters for privacy in a specific way. More consistent firmware behavior means fewer unexpected changes to privacy settings after updates. The processing power in Sony hardware also means Google TV runs more stably, which reduces the background service instability that can sometimes create unexpected data exposure on underpowered hardware. The premium option, with a meaningfully cleaner manufacturer-level privacy posture than almost every other brand on this list. Number 1. LG OLED Smart Displays. This is the display every other brand keeps trying to beat on picture quality. And in 2026, it is also the brand that has made the most credible effort to balance premium performance with a privacy posture that informed buyers can actually respect. LG OLED displays run WebOS, and LG has consistently been more transparent about its data practices than the majority of smart TV manufacturers. The privacy disclosures during setup are clearer. The settings to manage data collection are more accessible in the interface rather than buried. The opt-out process for LG's ACR system, which is called Live Plus, is functional and relatively straightforward to find and disable. LG also participates in a number of privacy certification frameworks that require independent verification of its disclosed practices, which adds a layer of accountability beyond self-reporting. Does LG collect data? Yes. And it is important to say that plainly. Live Plus, when enabled, monitors on-screen content and uses that data for advertising and content recommendations. The difference is that LG tells you this more clearly than most, makes it easier to turn off, and does not have a track record of collecting data beyond what it discloses. Unlike several brands ranked lower on this list, on the hardware side, LG OLED delivers near-perfect black levels and contrast, outstanding gaming support through mature HDMI 2.1 implementation, and a WebOS experience that runs cleanly and navigates well. Newer OLED panels have addressed burn-in concerns to the point where it is a non-issue for the vast majority of normal viewing habits, and buyers consistently report satisfaction that holds up across years of ownership, not just the first few months. Expensive, but expensive for the right reasons, on both the picture quality and the privacy front. So after ranking 10 major smart display brands through a privacy lens, the pattern that emerges is not really about picture quality at all. It is about business models. At the bottom of this list, you have displays built around a simple economic reality. The hardware is cheap because your data is the product. Roku, Amazon, and the brands that carry their platforms are in the advertising business as much as they are in the display business. Your viewing habits, your household profile, your behavioral data, all of it has real monetary value to their advertising partners. The cheap display is the entry point. You are what generates the ongoing revenue. In the middle, you have brands like TCL, Hisense, and Vizio that carry real privacy concerns. Whether from federal enforcement history, documented firmware behavior, security warnings, or data collection practices that run by default and require active effort to address, the value can be genuine. The privacy trade-off is also genuine. And at the top are brands that either offer meaningfully better transparency, operate without a parallel data brokerage business, or have made structural choices that result in a more respectful relationship with the person who owns the display. That does not mean zero data collection. It means a different standard of honesty about it. Because the real question in 2026 is not just which display has the best picture, it is what you are agreeing to when you connect that display to your home network and start watching. So before you buy anything, drop the exact model number you are looking at in the comments below, and I will tell you whether the privacy trade-offs are manageable or whether there is a better option at a similar price. And if you want more honest, privacy-focused tech rankings like this one, hit subscribe before your next purchase brings something into your home that you did not fully sign up for.